Out and about, gone out for a walk, and we're in a little village, Furwood Fold, and this is just a little oasis of oldie worldy awesomeness that's actually in the middle of some quite built up area, but it's so picturesque. You can see here the original cobbled street, and this road is actually it's the same road, Hallithwood Lane, which ultimately goes to Hallithwood Hall, which is where, well, as we all remember, Samuel Crompton did the, was it the Spinning Mule?
I believe it was, yes.
Yes. But this particular little village here is where he was born, so I think there's a blue plaque down here, so we're going to go and have a look around, but it really is a very picturesque little place. And this is wonderful. As you're looking at these timbers here, you can just see them exposed. They're so old. It's actually difficult to tell whether they're burnt or just weathered through hundreds of years.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is such a beautiful little place, and it's so well kept as well. Wow. So down here, this is actually just by Ellsworth Woodyard. So I just thought I'd name check the place where all the wood from our model railways comes from. It's good, that, isn't it? And we can see the river down there, and it's an awfully steep riverbank. You can see how the river has really cut into this landscape over the probably millennia. Even somewhere as fairly well urbanised as Bolton, there are still so many of these tranquil areas, and it's brilliant. This is on, they call it the Tongue Trail, and 8 miles of heritage. We keep seeing the little markers, but this is just wonderful. I'm really enjoying being out here. So we're going to hopefully show you a little bit more of the wonderful countryside around here. We've got a golf course behind us. I can hear the thwack of bulls heading around, but this is, I just love this place. I grew up here, came back here after a few years away, and it's a nice place. Looking out across that mill pond, it kind of belies that this area, even though it's really peaceful and tranquil now, there's quite an industrial heritage, an industrial past here. That all these trees and this green, quiet, open space is hiding that, I guess, 100 years ago, maybe even less time than that, you'd have come down here and it would have been pollution and mills. This tree, there's a branch grown out, and then it's like it's given up and just stuck back to the tree. Very peculiar. I've never seen anything like that before. And you know what? If you made that in model form, people would go, oh, your tree doesn't look realistic. Well, I beg to differ. I love the weathering over there on that stone wall. You can see that's it's part of the riverbank on the other side. It's well, a kind of a dry stone wall, but with some very big chunky bits of stone. But it's so covered over in moss and vegetation with trees growing out of it. It's almost like it's a natural feature. Well, we're down here in this valley, which is where the river's been slowly digging its way through. And what's really caught my eye is right up on the top there, there's a house. It's sort of a 60s style artsy bungalow, and it's so close to the edge, and the perils of doing that are very apparent with there's some kind of a shed in the garden made of sheet metal, and it's just literally falling down the slope, and you can see fragments of it in the side, but you wouldn't want kids up there because there doesn't seem to be any demarcation between the garden and this very, very steep drop. And we can see that the river has actually taken away some of this reinforcement that's been built into the bank on the other side. And at the moment it might look as though it's just a little tranquil little brook with no real power at all to it. But believe me, I know this river from having grown up further up where my parents live. And I've seen this river as a raging torrent in times of flood. And when it does that, the water level can be right up, probably over even this bank on this side. And the power of that water just scouring through this valley must be immense. And you can see some of those blocks of masonry over there where they've tumbled into the river. They are huge and quite a weight. You wouldn't be able to pick one of those up just with yourself on your own. And yet the water can just cart them away downstream somewhere. It's truly amazing. But no, wouldn't want to have my model railway in that shed, because it'd be down here scattered around. We've walked up the river now and we've reached a weir across, and I think it's something to do with the mill buildings which have since become Ellsworth's Woodyard. And probably if you go back 100, 150 years, the machinery in the mill that's been there would have been powered by water. And this weir probably marks the point at which that head of water was piped down. And there is actually evidence that behind this embankment on the other side there's a pipe laid for water. This is probably where it's come from. But what's really drawn my attention here is in the tail wash from the weir are these huge chunks of masonry. And you can see these really are masonry as opposed to just generic boulders, because they're clearly in square and rectangular shapes with machined out bits for bolting something to them. And it just illustrates the power of the water when this river is in flood, that it can just wash these chunks of stone and just dump them here at the base of the weir. So really you wouldn't like to fall in this when it's in full flight. We just moved up a little bit here now, and I'm going to have to talk a bit louder over the noise of this weir, but we can see behind it where originally the river would have run through at the same level as it is down there. The weir would have originally made a sort of a pond or a pound behind it, but over the years, the decades, maybe even over a century or more since this was built, successive floods have brought down sediment, gravel, all sorts of rubbish, and it's gradually filled up that pond area behind to the point where the riverbed is actually right up to the top of the weir. So there's no pond really to speak of at all behind here. And it's been this way for so long that there's mature trees growing on the sediment that's in the middle of the what used to be a pond. Just looking at this here now, and this is quite interesting. There's some more modern houses up there, but the backs of their gardens are actually held up on a piece of wall, which shows that this wall is from something much, much earlier, and it's basically been recycled when they built the houses, because it's got these buttresses down here, but also you can see where there's been steel work for quite a massive structure that's been cut off at ground level. And then obviously they've put a garden fence on top, but it looks like somebody's garage is built straight onto a wall that probably dates back to Victorian times. But that's quite peculiar. In fact, that is very old, because you can see that the steel structure is riveted together, and that does tell you that it's probably 1930s or earlier. Well, it was a really good day out, but we just sat here putting the video together and just realised it kind of just ends. So really, there's not much else to say other than we had a wonderful little walk out. And I can well recommend the Tongue Trail for 8 miles of heritage goodness. And we ought to do more of that, actually. Maybe we will. But certainly the little bit that we walked through, there was a lot of stuff of interest there. It's certainly great, these little oases of goodness that can be found even quite close into quite built up areas. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. It was really good to have you along for the ride, and I hope you got something out of this as well, seeing a little bit of possibly more unusual scenery that you wouldn't normally get to find and explore around the Bolton area. Anyway, you take very good care of yourself. Don't forget to share this video, like it too, and subscribe to the channel. That's the really important one, because you'll be able then to see new videos as and when they go up. Anyway, until next time, you take exceptionally good care of yourself, and I really need you to do that, because I do care about you as well. And it's me, Jenny Kirk, saying bye for now.